Rob Owens said that it was his decision and the president's to suspend the players, dismiss them from the team last week. Would that have been your punishment for these guys, considering they haven't been charged with a crime and that it sounds like they haven't been expelled yet? Is that the punishment you would have meted out to them?
I believe it's in the best interest of the university, the best interest of young men, and the best interest of our program for that decision.
So you said that when Brandon Austin transferred, Victor Floyd from Oregon Daily Animal, you said when he transferred that there wasn't anything that you found wrong with the incident, the reason he was suspended. What were you told from Providence that led you to this?
Ed Cooley said that it was not a legal matter, it was a university matter. The fact that Providence tried to keep him gave us confidence that it wasn't a serious matter.
Jake 7KZI, when did you find out the reason that Brandon was suspended from Providence?
The reason, when I found out there was a criminal investigation in March, I believe that we were in Milwaukee, so that was when I received word that it was a criminal investigation.
Had you known, would that have affected your decision to bring him here?
The criminal investigation?
Yeah, specifically.
I think the criminal investigation started in March. I'm not sure when that started. I'm led to believe it started in March.
Steve, when did you find out about this incident?
The day before we left to go to Milwaukee, Rob came into my office and said that there was an incident. And so that would have been, not sure exactly the date, but I believe it was that Monday, because I think we left on a Tuesday.
Did he tell you who was involved?
No, he did not. He did not know at that time.
If you had known what you know now, is that something you would suspend somebody for a game or two from?
Well, at the time we didn't know. It's hard to deal in what ifs, especially a situation like this.
Pat Torres, KGW. So you're the coach about to take the team to a very important tournament. Why didn't you push harder to find out what was going on with your players and what the allegations were?
Well, I didn't know how serious of allegations that were placed upon the young man at the time. And at that time, Rob had talked with the police department, and we were instructed, not to take any action, to let of any knowledge of anything to interfere with their investigation.
I'm Anna Bird with the Siren Magazine, and is it true that if you had suspended the 3 players prior to the tournament, that the UO basketball team wouldn't have been able to play in the NCAA tournament?
No, that's not correct.
Did you know that it was a rape investigation, or you said?
No, we
What
had.
were you told? What did you know before that they were investigating?
That there was just an incident. There was, we had no details.
Dana, did you ask Brandon Austin what the reason for his suspension was at Providence, and if so, what was his answer?
I spoke with the family, and I had every confidence after speaking with them and checking his high school background that there were nothing that would prevent him from joining our team. He did not give specifics, so my line of questioning probably didn't go deep enough there in retrospect. But I did not have a specific reason.
Bill Harbaugh, UO Matters. So I'm curious, under what circumstances would the news that these players were under investigation for sexual assault have finally become public if the sports reporters here had not brought it to the public's attention? And then follow-up, I'm wondering what you would tell the coaches at the schools where these players were potentially going to transfer to if you knew this information and the public did not.
Well, I'm very disappointed in the players. And when I read the report, I was very disappointed. However, I don't stop caring about the young men. And so there's a process that the young men still have to go through with the university. And after that is resolved, then I will look for the young men if they want to pursue other universities, other colleges. We'll answer those questions at that time.
What would happen if they tried to transfer, as I believe is the timeline, they tried to transfer out of the university to another school before the investigation was concluded, if there is an investigation? So
That's
what
not
would
the
you
case.
tell a coach in that situation?
Well, again, that's a what-if situation.
Don't players leave before an investigation has been complete? Does that ever happen?
They probably wouldn't enroll until next fall. So right now, the investigation will be complete before they move on to another school.
But they would be able to apply and be admitted to the other school.
That I don't know.
As was the case with Brandon Austin.
Well, Brandon was not under any suspension at all. He could not play on the team, but he was not suspended from school. He was enrolled at Providence, was a student there.
Steve, when did you take discipline against them? Because I know the release came out Monday and it said they weren't with the team. Had you suspended them, or when did
That was April 30th. Rob and I were called over to the office, the attorney's office. We read the report. Rob and I discussed it that night, and that was when the decision was made to suspend the players.
And then on Monday, why say not with the team currently, instead of saying that they're gone permanently? Why was that the wording on Monday?
That's your privacy laws. Let's go, Jake and Austin.
You Rob mentioned earlier that you were involved in the discussion to basically kick them off the team. Why was that decision made?
Well, again, I just felt that it was in the best interest of the university. It was in the best interest of those three young men, and the best interest of our basketball program.
How was it in the best interest of the three young men?
Well, I think there will be a lot of pressure here at Oregon if they were to return and try to play basketball.
How did they take being kicked off the team?
They were disappointed. Deanne Dot loved the university. They loved their time here, so it was disappointing.
Coach, so are we correct in assuming then they lost their scholarships?
There's a process that the university goes through, and we're still in the middle of that process, but they won't play basketball.
And then just to follow up, when you talked about bringing Austin coming in, you never talked to him and said, all right, kid, I'm going to be your coach. I need to know what happened in Providence so we make sure there's no problems here.
Well, we did talk about it, but again, those conversations are private, and there were things that were discussed, but I had every confidence in talking with Ed, knowing how bad Providence wanted him back, that what Brandon and his family were telling me was accurate.
We didn't tell you he was under investigation for a sexual abuse.
He was investigated at the school.
I mean, what?
But he
you had
didn't
a
tell
private
me that,
conversation,
no,
He didn't tell you that.
no.
Next to Bill there.
Dana Rungley, the agitator. I'm, deeply concerned that the focus is more on the players' well-being and the institution's well-being rather than sort of the survivors' well-being. And I'm curious what kind of training is offered to student athletes regarding sex-based violence such as this. What proactive measures are taken by the basketball team or by the athletics organization to really teach these young student athletes, these young men in particular, how not to commit these kind of egregious acts of violence?
Well, the university, the athletic department has a number of programs that we put our student athletes through. at the beginning of each year. One specifically for this type of activity, or this type of, was not done this year. We have spoke with
Why
our
wasn't it
players
done?
at time. Each year, for example, last year we did have, so DA and DOT would have gone through this. Brandon came at the semester time, which he would not have.
What do the trainings look like?
I haven't been involved in the
You don't
trainings.
know what the training on sexual violence for your
I
players
wasn't
looks like?
involved with it, so I can't give you specifics.
So you don't know what kind of training is available and required of your own players to prevent rape and other acts of sexual violence?
Our players are given opportunities and go to a number of programs in the
Are they
athletic
required to
department.
go to these programs?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Awesome.
Dana, were you frustrated to leave for the tournament not knowing the identity of the players, knowing that other people at the university knew?
I didn't know the allegations, you know, I just knew there was an incident, so I didn't know the extent of it at that time, so.
Victor?
Rob was saying that the recruiting process and the transferring process needs to be adjusted. How specifically do you plan on going about that in the future?
Well, I will follow, you know, the leadership of Rob and the president. Our staff will evaluate our situation, and we'll go through and make sure that the young men represent our program in a positive way.
Steve?
Have you noticed, I mean, obviously you're in a recruiting period now, has this been brought up? Have you noticed any fallout from this?
Well, it's been brought up. We've addressed it with the recruits that we've talked with, and so it will be something we'll have to address moving forward.
You have, looks like 10 openings now. Do you plan to go with 13, or have you decided you want to go into next year with 13, or now that you're having so many in one class, do you want to say, do you have a set number, how many on scholarship you want coming out of the signing period?
Well, we have 6 players that are signed for next year. We have 3 players on scholarship now. We have 6 players that are signed. So we currently have 9 players that are either on scholarship or signed. So we'll possibly add a player or 2 to that number, but right now we've got the 9.
So you could go to 13, you could go to 12. I mean, you're not filling a certain number. You could go with 9 or 10 or 11 or.
No, we'll just go with players that you know, fit our program, fit our needs.
Let's go to the back row. I've neglected you guys, and we'll come back to you three right here.
I'm with KATU TV out of Portland. Can you clarify whether or not the police initially told the university they were conducting a rape investigation?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Can you clarify, sorry, whether or not the police initially told the university they were conducting a rape investigation?
I'm not sure what was told to the university. The only contact I had regarding this whole procedure has been with Rob.
So you knew there was a criminal investigation, you just didn't know what the criminal investigation was?
No, we didn't know it was a criminal investigation. Rob had told me there was an incident that was being investigated. That was the only information I received, would have been on that Monday.
Did you get investigated by the police?
Yes,
And you knew that it was involving players on your team?
yes,
And you didn't know who the players were?
that is correct.
Was there any thought, did you kind of hear about who it possibly could be?
I hadn't at that time, no.
When did you hear about, even just in rumors, what it could be?
Later on, I'm not sure of the exact date, but it was early April.
Before the games, or was it after the tournament?
It was, I'm not sure your question, but after our tournament games?
Yeah,
Yes,
it was after that.
yes.
Christopher Clear, Oregon News. Since players have been kicked off the team, have you spoken to them, and what have the conversations been?
Well, I spoke with players. Again, those were tough conversations, personal conversations. I expressed my disappointment, but again, they're young men that I care deeply about, and So we've tried to help them through it also. There's 4 people whose lives have been greatly altered here, and I really feel very bad for the victim and her family. And moving forward, it's a tough situation.
So after Damien and Dominic met with the police, did they tell you that they met with the police and have been interviewed by them?
They did not tell me, no.
Did you hear it around the team that this they were having these interviews and there was a
Yes, I did.
investigation?
Yes, I did.
Do you expect any other players, current players, to leave the program in the future?
I do not.
Anybody else back row? Okay, we'll go KGW, Jake, Andrew, Bill.
Pat Doris, KGW. Coach, you're an Eagle Scout that carries a lot with it. You're a leader of men. You have your own daughter. Do you have any outrage over what happened with this young woman?
As I mentioned, I'm very disappointed in the 3 young men. Great disappointment, and as a father who has sons, as a father who has daughters, any family man would be greatly disappointed.
Rob Mullins mentioned earlier today that part of the reason why they were kicked off the team was conduct unbecoming of an Oregon student athlete. I'm wondering what you think specifically that's detailed in the police report, what conduct that's detailed falls under that category of being unbecoming of a dump.
I'm assuming that you've read the report, and I think that speaks for itself.
In what way? I mean, it's a long report, obviously.
Well, again, I was disappointed when I read the report, and there were a number of things in the report that disappointed me.
What specifically disappointed you?
Nothing. There's not one thing that led to this. It's the entire report.
Andrew?
The timeline, University first got the report on the 24th of April, and Rob had said you read it along with him on the 30th, as you said.
That's correct.
Were you frustrated that you didn't get to see it the first time earlier? I think there's like 6 days there where you weren't looped in, I guess, on the details. Were you frustrated by not seeing that earlier, maybe taking action earlier?
Well, I understand there's a process that the university is following. I was frustrated I wasn't able to speak earlier on the timeline on this. I'm sure, as you heard this morning, that the president and Rob were frustrated from the timeline, but there is a process, and I think the university has followed that, and they've asked me to follow it. And so the timing of the entire process has been frustrating.
Have you ever felt like your job was not safe during this period, this week, or even when you saw the report? Did you ever feel that you might, in fact, lose your job over this?
No, I didn't.
Bill?
So, we've heard you today, and oftentimes the athletic department talks in what to me is a professor is astonishing detail about the lives of student athletes. Things that I would not publicly talk about to my own students. My understanding is that student athletes have to sign a FERPA waiver that gives the athletic department the right to release some of those kinds of information. So this is actually a question for Craig Pimmons. I'm wondering if you could share copies, blank copies, not signed copies, of that FERPA waiver and other information. For example, the sexual assault trainings that
Bill, obviously you know that there's a process to request public records. If you have public records request, then make it.
so you're not willing to tell us. Then I'll ask the coach, do you know what FERPA rights your players waive?
I think those questions would have to be directed to Craig.
Craig, do you know what FERPA rights?
That's a good
athletes
question.
waive?
That's a great question for the university and for the compliance department. And Bill, are you here as a professor or are you here with the O-Manners? Could you identify yourself as a professor?
On both? Which one's okay?
Any other questions? Jake, did you have anything? We'll go
Yeah,
back
you
there.
can, in the past, when Damien had this incident at the fake ID, you defended him pretty strongly as doing good things in his 2 years here. Do you regret defending him that strongly after this incident and what's come out?
I think good people can make bad decisions. This obviously was a very bad decision. But when you have a history with a young man, that history goes into account also. But he made a very bad decision.
Who's paying for legal counsel for that
I
acting?
imagine their parents are, their families.
Okay, it's not coming out of any general fund?
Not that I know of.
Last question.
Maybe one more?
Dana, did this incident make you ask how well you knew these guys?
Well, I think any time something of this nature happens, you question a lot of things. But I felt very comfortable, very confident with the young men. And again, when I read the report on the 30th, I was disappointed, very disappointed. But you have a history with the young man, and so again, in reading the report, I was shocked and I was disappointed.
Coach, do you know where are the players now? Are they still on campus or have they gone somewhere?
They are at home.
Back to wherever they live?
They are back with their families.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.